about 4 or 5. Have any of y'all been to the Peace House where the actual line is there? So, for 70 years, there has been this ongoing hostilities between North and South Korea. As many of you know, there is no end to the Korean War. They just stopped shooting sometimes. The North Koreans have randomly still shot at all kinds of things. They have killed numerous South Koreans, both in the Navy and the Army over the years, at different times when they'd push and then come back. What we saw with the two of them, the two leaders, Moon and from Kim Jong-un, meeting at that peace house was historic, and it kind of came and went over a weekend. That kind of meeting has not happened in decades and decades. That building has sat there with a table prepared. If you see inside of that peace house, it's a big blue building, colored blue from the UN because the UN built it. But the UN built a building that crosses the line between the two, and there's a table inside of that building. And the table, half of it's in North Korea and half of it's in South Korea. It's a huge table, and actually, so you can come in and meet and still be in your country for the meetings and the negotiation. And it's been set up for decades to be in that meeting. It was finally used. So it's a fascinating thing. The interesting thing is that some people are tracking and some people are not. What the administration has done over the past year and a half to be able to push North Korea to come to the table has been effective. Now, North Korea still has to make their own decisions. But what Secretary Tillerson, when he was doing, when he was Secretary of State, was very unique diplomacy. They were identifying different North Korean embassies around the world and other countries, Brazil and places in Europe and everywhere else, going to those countries and saying, if we're going to isolate North Korea, you need to kick out, you need to join us and kick out these diplomats. And you may say, what does that matter if we kick out the North Korean embassy out of Brazil? Well, let me tell you what that matters. The people that are getting sent to all these embassies are people very loyal to Kim Jong-un, or else he's not going to send them out of the country because he's terrified of defectors. So these are the elites of the country that they and their families are very loyal to Kim Jong-un. This is his inner core. And the way you get a perk job from Kim Jong-un is to get a job as an ambassador, because you get to leave North Korea and you get to live in Brussels, or you get to live in some capital around the world, and you're not living in Pyongyang anymore. And if you're the elites, you're trying to get out of the country to be able to get access to this. And so Rex Tillerson going country to country and getting them closed out of those embassies did two things. Prevented those countries from getting more North Korean goods because they've got out of the embassy there to develop the economics, and sent those elites back to North Korea. And this is the inner circle around Kim Jong-un. So that's a big issue. It has not been done before. It's very creative diplomacy. Second thing is not just doing sanctions, but enforcing sanctions. They're actually watching for shipping vessels leaving out from North Korea or headed towards North Korea, and we're doing interdictions all the time of vessels on the ocean where they're taking their coal, for instance, off of one ship, transferring to another one in the middle of the ocean to be able to do North Korean shipments to be able to pull it off. We're interdicting those now in the ocean and stopping those shipments. So it's cutting off the flow of money into North Korea. We're cutting off luxury items getting to North Korea. And you may not think it's a big deal that high expensive liquor is getting into North Korea, but the only people that are using that are the people that are in the elites in the middle around Kim Jong-un. It's not getting to the rest of the country. If you ever want to see something fascinating, look at a Google Earth satellite image of the Korean Peninsula at night. You can just Google that, Korean Peninsula at night, and you'll see a photo. And you can see all the lights in South Korea, and then it looks like ocean, and then you see China. There's no ocean between that. That's North Korea. There's almost no electricity in almost all of that country. There's a tiny little dot that you'll see around Pyongyang, but most of the country still doesn't have electricity because people are starving while he is prospering. So there's not much you can do in economic sanctions other than just cutting off him. So they've done a very good job of cutting those things off and applying additional pressure. So that is pushing him to actually get to the table. If we can continue to have the cooperation of China, and I think China is helping us on this, and we can continue to have international pressure around it, we can address this issue. But again, it's all words right now. It's no action.